A welcome address by Mrs. Fejiro Ubute on this training organized by NAMB Delta State, 8th Thursday, February 2024. We are delighted to have our able president in our presence this morning. Our esteemed directors present here, distinguished president of the National Association of Microfinance Banks, NAMB, Mr. Joshua Ukute. A warm welcome to each of you as we gather here today in this virtual capacity building program. As we delve into the theme of the training titled Navigating the Economic Challenges, Strategies for Microfinance Banks to Flourish in Hard Times. At this moment, we find ourselves at a critical junction in the journey of microfinance banks. We are confronted with a multitude of challenges, both economic and social, which require our collective attention and determination to overcome. Now let us take a glimpse into the hour we are in the industry. Economic challenges of the sector. High inflation, exchange rate volatility, which affects our operations. Subsidy removal, cashless era, which we have not been able to recover from since last year, it's on call. Revocation of licenses and their impact on existing MFBs still subsist. Then the social challenges confronting the MFBs currently, rumors of failing banks, liquidity constraints, inability to attract depositors, reduced demands for loans, customers prioritize financial stability over taking loans now, decline in repayment capacity due to the high inflations, outbreaks of fintech with the ability to reach the most remote villages, whereas some MFBs are still working in an analog way, which even their own software cannot work effectively internally. So we are encouraging everyone to look into the fintech, financial technology aspect of microfinance to cover a range of customers. Training necessity. Learning our way out of hard times. This training is essential to equip ourselves with the tools and insights to navigate through challenging times. The harder the economy, the more committed we should be. In times of economic hardship, our dedication to our mission becomes even more crucial. Amidst these challenges, the emergence of fintech presents both opportunities and challenges. Rather than fearing disruption, let us embrace it as an avenue for innovation and expansion. Leveraging technology to enhance financial inclusion and sustainability is the way to go. In conclusion, let us approach this training session with resilience, collaboration, and unwavering determination. Together, we will navigate these challenges and emerge stronger than ever. Thank you as you participate in this training. Fix your gaze, prepare your mind, and ask questions that will be beneficial to your organization. Thank you very much.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Chairman, the MDs here present. I think for the training subject matter today, we have all, from the speeches that we have heard so far, we have all heard from the chairman and even the national president have all spoken in one voice to agree that the topic or the subject matter of discussion today wouldn't have come at a better time than this, considering the challenges that bedevils every one of us players in this microfinance subsector, arising from the different challenges of 2023, Naira redesign, the cashless policies, culminating into challenges, financial challenges from the CBN and policies from CBN of last year. Also, the distortion in the market arising from the distortion from fintech sector. Every one of us, one way or another, is encountering these challenges. And to take us through this training today is a personality that, I mean, for every one of us here, you know, he's the banker, astute technocrat. For us here in Delta State, we call him our go-to person when we need advice in times of challenges, and he never fails to deliver for us. And he's none other than Dr. Jonathan Twakwa, the MD CEO, Amju Unique Microfinance Bank, and our leader in the microfinance sector nationwide. Thank you very much, sir, for being with us today, sir.
Okay. Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yes, President.
Thank you very much. Mr. Chairman, National Association of Microfinance Bank, Mrs. Sugute, let us say chapter chairman, the president, National Association of Microfinance Bank, Mr. Joshua Ukute. You know, the two names are confusing, so pardon me, Ukute. And I think, let me stand on existing protocol. I want to appreciate all of us for organizing this training today. Like the two guest speakers that spoke have mentioned, it is very topical that we discuss how to navigate through hard economic times, particularly in a country, Nigeria, where we have a lot of economic disequilibrium or economic bottlenecks, so to speak. So I would appreciate if this training can be participatory, because we all need to identify what our problems are. By the time we identify them, we will now know how to navigate them. I will start by looking at the content of our training. This slide, that's my slide now. Let me share. You can. So I will share my slide right away. Okay. Can you see my slide now, please? Yes, okay. You can see it from here. You can see it. Is it clear? Yeah. Okay, we'll manage it the way it is. Okay, so like I was trying to say, we are going to look at the content of what we are going to receive today as training. I will start with the introduction, the global and domestic economic review. Then we will move to factors that affecting Nigerian economic performance. Then the macroeconomic dashboard, which will try to show us inflationary rates and all the macroeconomic indicators on a simple dashboard. Then we'll equally look at why MFBs are struggling for survival in the midst of poor economic conditions or performance. Then when we go forward, we equally look at strategies for MFB to flourish in hard times. So we're going to chronicle a lot of strategies that we will use for MFB to flourish. Among them are the issues like digital banking transformation, good strategies for performance review of KPIs, and so on and so forth. Now, on the global front, we are aware that the global recession started so many years ago, 2028 particularly, and is still proving an unresolved perfect storm on the financial crisis within the national, domestic economy and even the global economy. Because the crisis has affected also the real economy, creating widespread social unrest, like the chairman said. Microfinance banks in developing countries seems, however, less affected, though there's a general tumor affecting all of us due to the segmentation or resilience of external shocks. Because of the minute nature of MFB, the shocks have not significantly impacted as at 2010 to 2019. But because of the nature of risk, where risk can spread globally, the impact is not being felt. You know, recession has a big impact on governance mechanism. Of course, we all know, altering the equilibrium among different stakeholders, including the microfinance banks. And in fact, it increases risk of investing money or resources or financial resources. Any governance improvements in this direction to ensure that the risk that are combinational, that are transferred from foreign countries to the domestic economy are properly checked and, if possible, well mitigated. Otherwise, in the confused phase we're living in at the moment, there are not evident winners, but when our bank poorest, which are the poorest, less properly supported, once again, risk will ultimately crystallize, and most of the banks, particularly microfinance banks, will be losers. So going forward, it is important that we x-ray the global economy, which is more like our domestic economy. Of course, we know that it equally experiences technical patterns. You have the ups and downs of the economy, the swing, recession, the boom, and all of that. Of course, looking at the domestic foreign front, the recent Russia-Ukraine conflict, coupled with the disruption caused by COVID-19 pandemic, has a lot of consequences for global supply chain, because most goods, because Nigeria is import dependent, most goods, as we can see, cannot be procured on international front because of the same impact of the supply chain disruption within the during the COVID. So these goods affected are particularly agricultural products and, of course, energy sector and other inputs, because even manufactured goods, we have problems. Machineries, plant and machineries, even cars, we have problems in actually getting the supply chain perfected because of the disruption in supply. This disruption has resulted in a significant decline in commodity prices and, of course, international trade. You know, the sustained high rate of crude oil have posed challenges for most import-dependent countries like Nigeria in managing prices. You know, we'll summarize, because the whole essence of this slide is to bring us to speed to know what is happening within our economy. Of course, the domestic factor affected by the economic decline or disequilibrium are such that insecurity remains a pressing issue within our domestic economy. Then, of course, persistent high insecurity have resulted in decreased national productivity, as many farmers have been unable to access their farmland, disrupting supply chain and major economic activities. Like we have noted in the slides, this has led to food shortages and inflation in various parts of the country. Infrastructural constraints, of course, we all know, also pose a significant challenge, undermining the production chain and distribution network of goods and services. Then, like as we mentioned already, of course, high inflation are all challenges that lead to increase in interest rates and discouraging investors in the productive.
Hello, sir. We are not seeing. It's not moving.
It's like not moving.
Yes, sir, it's not moving.
It's just showing only your
Okay,
name.
let me try to share what's happening. Let's share.
So the ones you have been reading, we are not seeing anything.
Come here. Can you see the slide now?
Yes.
You can see it now.
Okay, we are on content. We cannot see the contents.
Okay. Some of them are not displaying. But the major areas I need to discuss are the areas I'm going to go to. Because I'm not showing you what is happening. Yes. Okay, but you are seeing what is here now.
Yes.
You can see what is here now. So most of them are not going to show, but the major areas that would put light, throw light on, I think those ones will show. Let us not to. So actually, what I was trying to discuss was to look at the global economy, the domestic economy, which we have talked about. Then I ought to have shown you I think I ought to show the growth rate of gross domestic product, GDP, exchange rates, both parallel and official exchange rates, monetary policy rates, production of crude oil, FS reserves, we stand at 35.6 billion, market capitalization, and of course, inflation rate, which the president mentioned about 22.8%. We are going to, those one will be contained in the slide I'll forward to you because they might not show actually in this presentation. But the emphasis we want to lay here is that microfinance banks are struggling for survival in the midst of all the above poor economic performances, like you will see in the slide I will send to you, where you see the inflation rate, the growth rate, the foreign exchange rate, and all the other rates that accompany this, all the macroeconomic indicators. All of these have resulted to real income decline and pressure on income because inflation, which is about 22.8 or 23%, as at 2023, continue to accelerate and wages remain static. We are also equally aware that the federal government, recently decided to help the public sector by increasing their salary by 30,000 naira or in some of the sectors, but the private sector were not affected. This is expectedly that we have cushioned the effect of the inflationary rate. But of course, it has neutrality effect because at the end of the day, price continued to grow. There was an upward gyration in the price of goods and services, worsened by, of course, the exchange rate that went sour. We can recall that within a space of 2 weeks, the foreign exchange rate has about 4 rates in a day because it increased every hour. So rates are not stable. The rate of volatility of foreign exchange is another thing that we'll need to contend with. It makes business unpredictable. It creates a lot of uncertainty, particularly in a country where we are import dependent. So it gives some implication for monetary policy in the country. But the most important area we need to talk about, which we need to look at, is MFB struggling for survival in the midst of the above poor economic performances. I want to make some few comments. Before the entrance of microfinance bank, commercial bank, MFB, commercial banks were reluctant to lend to those without credit history. And that provided opportunity to those who need to take risk. That is why we came into being. Because MFB were actually prepared to take risk to lend without collateral. Then again, I want to say that the gap of reaching out to the poor still exists. And commercial banks are trying to develop their own ecosystem to reach out directly to the poor. That will stiffen competition for MFB, of course, we all know. Then again, today commercial banks are playing at micro space as much as MFBs are playing. I'm trying to make this point so we know that the competition is becoming stiffer. The microfinance lenders may become irrelevant if commercial banks turn efficient. Because of the inefficiency of commercial banks to give loans to the other banks, to the less privileged, microfinance bank came in. But if tomorrow the commercial bank wakes up and says to take up the role of a microfinance bank, then of course the margin for microfinance bank will be getting thinner. So like I said, the business model provided by the Nobel laureate Mohamed Yunus is still profitable to us, but the vagaries of regulations keep the potential for survival doubtful because the business model we are adopting is that of micro 80, macro 20. So with the nature of or the structure of the economy, where we have the economy divided into various classifications, even from the rural economy. You have the rich, the middle class, and the poor. And attention only is divided to the poor, leaving the other two classes of business model gives some implication for sustainability. Again, the tiny capital of MFBs makes it very vulnerable, even as a small diverse development, as their finances remain fragile. So these are issues that are affecting us. Our finances are small, and therefore makes us to be vulnerable. Then commercial banks are looking for ways of strategic stake with MFBs, since taking them as subsidiary is prohibited by regulation. And MFBs need capital to remain on the good path. Because one of the major problems, like the president addressed or the chairman addressed, is the fact that our capital still remains small. Therefore, we need anchor investors within the subsector. I would like to also say that commercial banks have multiple products and are short deposits. MFBs, on the other hand, are dependent on markets for funds, which makes us to take very high cost funds. Of course, which turns hostile at the smallest of events that affect businesses, such as the news of banks going under, the withdrawal of license by CBN. It makes the depositors very hostile to microfinance banks. These are issues that we're contending with in the midst of poor economic performance. So, given the essence of financial inclusion, maybe to flourish in hard times. We need to look at this. These strategies are not theoretical, they are practical. And it's a thing we do every day. And the success of MFB tomorrow in this condition of poor economic system in the country, for us to flourish, we need to look at these strategies critically, particularly looking at innovation. Innovation is key because, as we all know, the level of digital transformation in the country is unprecedented. As we go on, we need to discuss why we need digital banking. Though many schools of thought may argue that it is very, very expensive. That is on the short run, but in the long run, it becomes beneficial because the issue of bricks and mortar, where people go to the bank, particularly the lesson we learn from pandemic, is such that customers need to be served at the convenience of their home or at the convenience of their devices. We'll look at that. Then, of course, for us to flourish, we also need good financial performance and proper performance management tracking. Then, of course, stable and dedicated management team, high and skilled personnel, strategic distribution channel, good asset quality, conscious cost control efforts. Then, of course, enterprise risk management, operational risk control, liquidity management, governance, risk and control oversight, and compliance oversight, please. Compliance oversight. I don't know if you are getting me. Are you following me?
Yes, we are.
If I am too fast, please draw my attention. So we're going to innovation through data transformation. Of course, this here, we'll talk mainly about serving customers at their convenience, remote onboarding customers, agent networking, call centers. And this can be done without innovation. These are things that data will help us to do. For instance, if you have the big data, you also do what you call customer management profiling, in which case you can look at your top 100 customers or your top 1,000 customers, or look at your most profitable customers and think of what to do to serve them better. So data transformation requires that we should use data to analyze the performance of our customer, the most profitable customers and the rest. then that will, of course, improve operational efficiency. It will grow our portfolio over time. And know that the longer MFB take to build this capacity, the further they will fall behind more nimble competition. Because as we all know today, competition is very, very stiff in the market. Now, we also need to look at product diversification. For now, our products are narrowed. I know that we're also doing micro insurance, but we need to broaden our product base to accommodate the poor of the poorest, to the extent that their daily needs are catered for, their weekly needs are catered for, their monthly needs are catered for, and their current and future needs are catered for. Now we're doing micro housing, which is one of the major needs of the poor people. So we need to diversify our product base, to broaden our service offer in a way to meet customer demand, enhance their loyalty, and develop more customer-friendly products that add benefit to customers, information and guidance. They find a way to make services to third party available without losing customer relationship. To achieve some of all these, of course, we need to strengthen our back office, strengthen our capability and capacity, then build some technical skill. So definitely digital banking economy will encompass the use of things like ATM, POS, internet banking, USSD, going through transfer, going through NIBs, remitter, mobile application, of course, building wallets, like this one, we're only meeting on Zoom, it saves costs, webinar, etc. All these channels reduce cost of meeting, maintenance cost of vehicles, and reduction in accommodation and expenses. What we're advocating here, the microfinance bank must remain a clear leader in deploying of technology. This is very, very important to provide best-in-class quality service to their esteemed customer. This is the only way to go in modern banking that incorporates digital into the ecosystem. There's also need to invest massively in new technology and digital solutions to ensure confidence, speed, and safety of transactions. The microfinance bank must remain committed and leverage technology to deploy innovative services that will cater for the varied appetites of our customer in a constant changing world. Of course, in one of the slides here, I try to show good financial performance, world balance sheets. So I'm not going to overemphasize on balance sheet, but from the balance sheet structure, you look at the balance sheet structure, we talk about, you look at the financial highlights of any balance sheet, any good balance sheet of a financial institution, you are going to see income statement highlights for any balance sheet you see income statement highlights. And that's going to tell us about the interest, that is the interest and similar income from operations. We'll equally see things like net interest income. We're going to see operating income from our normal balance sheets. And of course, we're going to see profit before tax and all of that. If we go to the balance sheet highlights, of course, in our balance sheet, we are going to see gross loans and advances. We're going to see also in the liability section, customers' deposits. And of course, we're going to see in the asset side, total assets. Then at the end of the day, if you look at the key ratios or ratios, you're going to see things like return on equity. So, risk taking. We're going to see all of these, the cost to income and all those analysis we'll see. But what I'm saying is that for any bank or any microfinance bank to survive, they must have good financial performance. I'm not taking this on this. I'll go to the slide now. You must have if you want to succeed, everybody must be part of the budget. Both being in operations, being in marketing, everybody, even at the gates, everybody is expected to be a marketer. So this document, core budget, is breaking down to units, and every staff has a part to play in the budget. So we'll give key performance indicators to all staff from various units and ensure a good performance tracking that is objective. They focus on marketing plan or strategy to address mobilization of deposit, because this is one of the major problems of microfinance bank, inability to to mobilize enough deposit. So it is the duty of every staff to ensure that deposit is mobilized. So when we break the budget down into various group or staff or team, then we expect that budget has to be driven. All our marketing presence have to be demonstrated through the budget, because by the time we break it down, every staff has to go into the market arena to go and mobilize deposit. The major problem we have in microfinance banking, like we said before, is because most of us rely on high cost funds, and so our margins are very thin, and it is not readily available. So most times we find ourselves under lending, performing below our budgets. But if it becomes a strategic alignment or plan that every staff must be part of the budget, there's no sacred cow. Then, of course, if that strategy is adopted, we'll be able to mobilize low-cost deposits. And one of the ways to monitor is to make sure that every staff give report through core memos. On daily basis, you break your budget from yearly basis to monthly basis to weekly basis to daily basis. And so, as you go out and come in, you give us core memo, which will be reviewed by supervisors, and where possible, take a joint marketing call. Because some of the customers we market, from experience over the years, we like to see the big men, the managers, the supervisor coming to their business arena, and they will be pleased that manager came to my location. They are excited. So joint marketing calls will help us to win some of the customers that ordinarily our marketers may not be able to win. So we'll take joint marketing calls. We also do what we call market storm. We'll go to a typical market arena and announce our presence and discuss our products and cross-sell these products to customers. Then, if possible, microfinance bank should imbibe the culture of having customer service week, where they do customer awareness programs. Customers are educated about the products, and even at that occasion, customers can even help to build new products, improve quality of services, adapt to customers' needs, cost-effective services, speedy and on-time services to be rendered to customers. There will be strategies to help to thrive or to remain afloat in the market. Are we together? Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we are hearing.
I'll move to the next slide. Strategic plan to performance review. We're talking about key performance indicators review. And most times, managers are lazy, or they are not willing to follow up this very, very important section of important function of management, because whatever is not measured cannot be properly quantified, or whatever is not quantified cannot be properly measured. So expectation is that at the strategic intent, when the budget has been shared to various teams or various units or various staff, it's expected that there should be a quarter performance review. Because robust performance review practice driven by budget can help us to monitor individual staff performance. And you must ensure that all performance goals expected of each member staff, are properly documented. We advise staff of their targets. And of course, these targets are advised to staff if the staff know that they are constantly monitored. I mean, on a daily basis, they will be conscious that there's need for them to meet up their daily targets, which snowball to weekly targets and monthly targets. But if staff are left adamant, because what I'm trying to emphasize is that everybody must take responsibility for results. Every staff must take from the A to the Z, must take responsibility for results. Because if it is not done, because there's an adage in my place that if you don't contribute to food, you cannot eat from the food. That is the basic fact. So all of us must contribute, in as much as we want to progress in our own duty, or you want to pray that God will bless you. My thinking is that the first thing that we must do as bankers, as staff of the organization, is to ensure that God blesses our organization before we are blessed. There's no way you expect God to bless you by paying you salary from NFBs or from Chevron. God will pay you salary in your microfinance that you are working, and will bless you there. And that is what is expected. And if you want blessing, you must do what? You must work diligently. So performance management, as manager, monitor and evaluate employees' work and align it with the company's goals and objectives. So credible measures of performance that employees understand and accept are critical for achieving high-level performance measuring employees' accomplishment. And of course, performance analytics refers to practice of analyzing key performance indicators in a bank to develop strategy to help reach our goals. And the aim is to ensure that continuous improvement across the company or the bank. And of course, good functional output are the result of such measurement. Then the performance of all employees directly linked, of course, we all know, to achievement of the business or corporate goals. So the hallmark of a successful performance management system is its ability to align individual goals, that is staff, with the broader companies or banks' objective. So we must set performance expectations, which is very, very key, and they must be well-defined performance criteria. And of course, we review employees' performance regularly, like we said, either weekly or monthly, quarterly, or yearly. They conduct, like I said, quarterly annual review. All these that we try that way, flourish if the performance are poor, if they are delivering on monthly basis weak results, if the return on equity assets are very poor, if management are inefficient, there's no organization that can actually flourish. So flourishing is a function of performance, and these performance are related to financial performance. Put together. If MFBs want to thrive, they must find pockets of unbanked customers. This is where marketing plans come into play. Every bank, every microfinance bank that really want to, achieve growth must have a marketing plan, and individual staff must equally have a marketing plan basis to match their budget in terms of deposit inflation. And every staff at the beginning of every month and all expected inflow properly highlighted. They follow up to ensure that all visits or calls are result-oriented. And if possible, like I said in the slide, make repeated calls until accounts are signed up. If marketing is religiously and call over yesterday work, I'm going to look at the figures without driving the instrument that leads to the increase of the figures, which is the staff. There's no organization that will succeed without the staff playing their role. Every staff must play their role. And this is one of the tools. Marketing plan is one of the tools that we can use to monitor, the staff or the marketers or the team for effective performance. So marketing plan must break down the objective by branch, what each of your branch want to make, the product type, what is the volume you want to drive for a particular product, and the demographics.
They don't come back again. They don't come back. By that I got finished. Just
Are we together? Are we together? Can you hear me? So I was discussing about marketing. You must break it down into the branch objective. You must equally do it by product type. And of course, the demographics. Like here, we believe in demographics because, the proportion of women that save, they are higher than men that save. So analyzing marketing plan demographically equally help us to look at the area that is performing well and the area that's not performing well. So we believe in demographics for analysis for some purpose and for data management purpose. From there, it can be more granular, having defined key performance indicators for each category. When you break it down to the smaller units in terms of the demography. Then every, all our customers that patronize us, all of them, they have their different way of behavior. From when you market them, you give them hope because there's a product we sell sometimes that educational product that you can save collect resources to pay your children's school fees. In fact, it gives them hope because customers know that they will be able to, meet up their children's school fees by regular service. Also, it helps them to solve the fear of to a college-bound senior and assign values. When you break them down, you can also be able to relate their fears and hopes and needs to each one. Then, if fact, for every marketer, this is very, very important. I'm talking of the mix. Every marketing plan for the banking industry has a mix of strategy. No one strategy is perfect, of course, as we know, which is why it makes sense to use various marketing methodologies, such as organic, paid. Some people pay for marketing adverts, from paid to print medias, and even some event-based, where the events are taking place, they go there and advertise, they put their banners and begin to market individuals in such arena. Even 5 or Sundays, some of the strategy that banks have ever used, right from commercial to micro finance banks, have been that every staff that goes to church or that go to mosque or any other place of worship, we ensure that in the process of worshiping God or worshiping idol or whatever they worship, they should ensure that they're able to, that is necessary, which means that we should be eating marketing, should be singing marketing at all times, and ensure that at every of our art, we're able to capture part of the customer. Facebook ads, some print and newsletter over time in marketing. But it is important that we look at them and try to practice them. Then again, for a surviving bank or for a bank to flourish, we must think of our environment. It makes it easier for you to increase your deposit and, of course, by extension, increase your income. Then review your income lines. Most times, we do not benchmark our income lines with our budget. Because the truth of the matter is that if we have made a budget and we are actual to the budget, if we say we are making 1 billion as our profit, or we're making 1 billion as interest income, expectedly, at the end of the month, we should be able to benchmark what we review what we have done, whether we're able to make 1 billion. If we make the 1 billion, then fine. Then you now have to think of how to improve on it the following month. Then a strategy will not be had, where you will not look at it. The phone is need to be mute. So that will definitely cover a strategic session. How did we achieve the set target? It's very, very important that you review what you have done to achieve it, and if possible, do it better. This constant review helps to keep on track variances, because a lot of people do not pay attention to variances. They're not worried about why they have not been able to achieve their target. Even variances could be positive or negative. When it is positive, if you have made above your budget, you must also identify the factor that have helped you to achieve success. So that you think of building on it or taking advantage more opportunities of what you have done to move forward. These are practical strategies that we can use to improve our performance, to improve our earning capacity. And of course, you look at your maintenance fees. What happened in the previous month? Is it in alignment with your budget? Are you sure you can sustain it? And what did you do differently that have you to achieve this? And what can you do better to carry it forward? This constant review is very, very important to survival, it's very important to sustainability, and it's very important if we must flourish. Then, of course, also review all the econ lines. Look at your products. Look at your ATM fees. Look at your POS fees, your USSD, internet banking fees, mobile app, and every other electronic banking products that you have. Review them. What can you do to do it better? A lot of others have POS. They are outside there. Some of their dormant. We're not reviewing them. But you expect to make income. It is not quite, it cannot work without constant review and see how you can improve them better. Salary administration or selling of products are ways to actually improve your earning capacity. Then there's one thing that I must discuss here, because it is very, very important. We do this deliberately, unknowingly to all of us. We're not looking at our interest rate policy. If I ask now, how many of you have interest rate policy in your bank? I know few people may have it, some may not have at all. Interest rate policy is very, very important because it impacts on net interest income. And the area that actually affects interest income, which we don't know already to us, is the area we call either a pricing gap or duration gap. And this occurs through timing differences in maturity profile of our assets and liability. What I'm trying to say is that, assets, which are the loans, which are the the deposits, and loan that you have, it has a tenor, it has a period of same thing with deposit we have. If we have a fixed deposit, of course they have maturity period. We book fixed deposit for 30 days, 180 days, and 360 days or 1 year. So they all have maturity period. So we must be conscious to look at the timing difference between when the asset matures and when the liability matures. If they are not properly timed, and of course the liability matures before the asset, or the asset matures before the liability, you must realign them. Now, when we look at the repricing gap, it measures interest rate sensitivity between asset and liability. So while the duration gap measures changes in market value of financial contracts, that is your fixed deposit contracts, your loan contracts. So the market value, what would be the value at the date of maturity? So one is driven by interest rates of these assets and liability. The other one is driven by the value, market value of these assets. So we must set our standards that we should not allow our liability to mature before the loan. Because if liability matures the loan and the customer decides to reprice it, you have an issue. There will be a repricing gap. And when you price the liability higher and the interest rates on the loan is fixed, it becomes a problem. So maturity profiling, repricing gap, and duration gap are very, very key to our balance sheet. It impacts on our net interest income, because for us to have learned, we have interest received and interest expenses. So if expenses is higher than income, unknowingly to you, because this asset will reprice at different time, and there's no equilibrium between the pricing period, and of course your liability rates are higher, which interest expenses will be higher. At the end of the day, there's a mismatch. There's a disequilibrium. Before you know it, you will be making negative net income on interest. This is very, very clear. Many banks' failure that we analyzed in the 2008 to 2019, but the factor that worked against them was the pricing gap and duration gap. In fact, we analyzed a couple of banks and we discovered that many people, many managers are not conscious, particularly when you have branch banking. They're not conscious of their rate of interest. They're not worried about their cost of funds. At the end of the day, they will have recklessly driven the net interest income to a negative position. So it is a caveat, it's a warning to every manager of funds of a bank to ensure that they look at the interest rate in policy and look at the impact of their maturity profile. Now, we also need to flourish. We can only flourish when we look at the stable and dedicated management team. What do? We expect them to close monitor, supervise employees. They should supervise them closely and put an eye on bank strategy to document this is the budget. A dedicated management team should be having the budget as their daily guide. And early tracking of any factor that will make management to fail to deliver results, it will be very, very key to them. Dedicated management team will close mark returns on assets. They will close mark return on equity. And of course, close mark, return on capital employed. In addition to this, they will, close mark in direction of the deposit. Is it growing or is it shrinking? Then, of course, the dedicated management team will ensure zero tolerance for staff turnover. Ensure that staff are adequately motivated and they have buoyant spirit to work. The dedicated management team also ensure zero tolerance for bad debts. We're going to look at the impact of bad debts because they have, in fact, it is one of the major things that kills banks. Why it is agreed that it is the highest earning asset for our banks, but it's also contagious. It creates a lot of problems for banks when they become bad. Look at that when we talk of good asset quality. Then, of course, for your staff to be efficient, we'll be talking of highly skilled personnel. You know, if you have, you are good to go. If your staff are skillful, their efficiency level will increase. So MFBs need of necessity to address key gaps, invest in capacity building if they aim to achieve a relatively modest growth and flourish. Of course, this can be done through in-house training, departmental training, coaching, and mentoring. Then, of course, cutting-edge staff development practices. These are done to make the staff more efficient. And the more efficient the staff, the more skills they develop, the more performance you expect from them. So like I've said in this slide, if you don't train, don't blame them. We must ensure that our staff receive adequate training. Then, of course, for us to thrive, we'll be talking of the market breadth, the market width, the market depth. How deep have you gone to the market? There we'll be looking at things like, strategic distribution channels. We must have multiple distribution channels, particularly given that customers' wants are becoming psychedelic. Customers want to be served at the convenience of their house. Customers want to be served at the convenience of a handheld device in their hand. So they want to be served at a very cheap cost without much transaction cost. So we need to look at things like agency banking, use of referrals, share marketing. We use various electronic channels through digital banking platform, which I have discussed extensively. There are other channels, like we have said, those ATMs, card dispenser, where you can pay your money when nobody is there. And of course, uses the kiosk banking, SMS alert, and other channels of distribution. They will all help to create an outreach. And of course, that will increase your customer base, increase your deposits, and by extension, increase your profitability. Asset quality, good asset quality. See, if our assets are deteriorating, if they are becoming poor, they can reduce our profitability. In fact, they can decrease our capital adequacy. Capital adequacy is a cushion against unforeseen losses. And so, by the time you decrease, you are gradually eroding your capital by making losses. So it is important that your asset quality are high, they're good quality. Don't be in a hurry to give loans. And when giving loans, you must ensure that you give them to, don't put good money after bad. Give them to people that will return your money. Because when they become bad, they reduce your bank cash flow. When they become bad, they make you to make provision which decrease your bank's profitability and erode your capital. Therefore, for banks to flourish in hard times, there must be deliberate attempt to adopt good credit risk culture and pay attention to core risk, such as risk of counterparty, and see how all these risks can be mitigated. And this will also require monthly review. Most of us give loans and we just leave the loan portfolio to drive itself. It's not going to be possible to do well because there could be some lapses. So we need to do constant monthly credit review in our various banks. Constant monthly credit review. Then at the risk department, we expect, especially that every week they must be doing weekly credit review. This is done with a view to tracking any deviation, any failure, or any expected, default, it will be tracked on time, and recovery procedure will be set in. Now, of course, it's expected that every team must raise a recovery team that will address any loan defaults. In assessing credits, we are all aware, we're not going to teach this, we're all aware that there are some mnemonics that we use to assess loans. This must be done religiously. Like I've said in this place, Campari. Character must look at them, ability, means, purpose, amount, repayment, and insurance. Or we use personality, amount and purpose, repayment, security, expediency, and remuneration. These are things that we have done over time in credit risk classes. So we must make sure that we keep religiously to this. Then I must say this. In assessing credit, we must follow some basic procedure and documentations. Because most of the reason why we are failing is because we don't follow proper documentation. For instance, we visit visitor reports. We give credit while we don't have site visitation by the loan officer. You have not going to visit the customer to know his business location. You don't know his business, you don't know the person. You only meet him in the bank. So we must ensure we visit the site and do first-class assessments, value stock, and ensure that they're adequate to support. And even the security you're going to take for the loan or for the advance, you value them to ensure that they're adequate. We have had a situation before where we took a security long ago in one of the banks I worked, and at the end of the day, we have been reporting the security that the land is 100 by 200, and the seated, a story building is seated there. But after so many years of that report, we had a new manager that came that want to do his job. He said in assessing risk and in evaluating these things, we must go to site to go and visit the site. So that day we move for the first time, like a month, we move to the location to go and assess the security we'll be reporting every year or every month. I discovered the land they are describing is an empty land. There was no upstairs sitting on it. So the security became defective. So in our appraising loans or facility or request, we must ensure that there's a detailed decision by the loan officer and by extension by the approving authorities, if possible, must delegate somebody to visit. So an obvious irregularity are detected on site if you visit, and of course, missing or insufficient collateral, like I've told you, you can detect it. Then, of course, guarantors must be seen, must be visited, and all confidential documentation must be in place before you disburse loan. One of the reasons for bad loans, like I said, have been poor credit monitoring, and we have to monitor our credits. Another measure that will keep us afloat in the market and be flourish is when we control cost. Look at our capital expenditure, look at our operating cost, which we call CAPEX or OPEX, and avoid expenditure that cannot be used to generate immediate cash flow or income. We need to avoid them, particularly in these hard economic times. Then adjust our business hours if we know, because the cost of running a physical office is very, very expensive. We get to run the generators, we got to run security, we got to run diesels, and all of that. So we can shorten our business hours. It can help us to save some operating costs or expenses. Then, in most banks, also banks believe in courier services. They will just go and spend money on courier or pay a lot for outsourcing their mailing system. If possible, if we can use AI services, you reduce some cost escalation. Then, of course, any investment we want to make, we must appraise them properly. If the profitability level is too low, I put them on hold. So basically, we must put a better eye view on our capital expenditure. Anyone that's not profitable on the short run can be suspended while trying to work down your operating cost. Another measure or method or strategy to actually, flourish is when we try to identify what will happen to us tomorrow in terms of enterprise risk management. And we are able to discern or able to mitigate future risk. Like we all know, risk is proactive. We don't have to be reactive. It is when it has happened that we now come to the scene and solve the problem. We should identify from the onset, what are the likely risks that are going to confront our inability to achieve our set target through the budget document. That is done. If that is done, we will be able to identify this in advance and look at how we can reduce incidents of bad debt. For instance, if you do a good credit appraisal, identify the risk, reduce cost of unpleasant surprises that could lead to losses. And of course, proactively identify risk or danger ahead and mitigate them if possible, or avoid them. Then, of course, this will improve sustainability for us and reduce harm or losses to the institution or to the microfinance bank. We all know that in mitigating all risk, we have a risk table that seems to direct us, a probability table that try to tell us about probability and severity. I don't need to talk much about this. We know that low risk with low probability will accept them. And of course, high risk with low probability will manage the risk if possible. Then, if the risk is excessively high, probability is high, severity is high, we avoid it or transfer it. Then again, we could have risk that is high in severity, but low in probability. Such risk, we either share them or we transfer them. These are risk management strategies to reduce losses. And of course, like we also have risk responses. People look at risk as only one-sided. Risk has both sides, both threats and opportunity, both loss and both profit and loss. You could benefit from a risk that occurs. If you take opportunity of, you prepare for it, it can be an opportunity to you. So in most cases, for threats, we avoid them, or we transfer them like we have said in the previous slide, or we reduce them, or we manage within our limited capability. But for opportunity that brings themselves out of risk, we exploit those opportunities, either we exploit it or enhance it, improve on it, or we share it. Like in my slide, one of the slides I'm going to see, I'm going to forward to you because I didn't complete some of the slides. I'm going to forward it to you. You know, there's a program that federal governments decided to be involved in. We call that program IDICE. Are we together? Are you hearing me? IDICE. I don't know if you are with me.
Yes, we can hear you, sir.
Can hear you.
I'm trying to use a program that federal government did. I think that was towards 2023. Yeah, 2023. This is what we call IDICE, which is Investment in Digital and Creative Enterprises Program. Investment in Digital and Creative Enterprises Program. We call it IDICE. You know, and of course, it's federal government initiative. And of course, it's meant to promote entrepreneurship and innovation in digital technology. And of course, the aim is also to create jobs, really for the young people. You understand? That program, it is aimed that when it is on top gear, you'll be able to employ a minimum of 6 million people, create a minimum of 6 million jobs. Like the analyst said, he said about 552,000 direct jobs and 5,580,000 indirect jobs. Of course, it was aimed that it will employ over 175 youth that will be equipped with skills in digital and creative industry. I mean, all this to foster innovation and support the measures of more entrepreneurs. We also noted that that program was also meant to, create 226 startups, in digital space. Such program that will create so much employment should be a focus of marketers in the market arena. So we expect that this is an opportunity that we'll have to look at because 550,000 jobs will be dedicated. Indirect one will be 5,580,000, creating a total job of 6 million. We need to take, these are things we need to look at, giving market information to ensure that we exploit them and take advantage of such information to do our market or to reshape our market outlook. Then we cannot lose sight too of managing operational risk. Of course, we know about anti-money laundering, counterfeit terrorism, and all those things. We must manage operational risk to the barest minimum. Operational risk, as we know, is failure of systems, not only system, processes, and even people. It could be also technical failures, human error, mistakes in execution of projects, like I said, system failure and policy violation. Up to the extent that it's even involved legal infringement. So when we talk about the people, what do we do to manage the risk? During pandemic, what were we doing? People were doing remote working to reduce the world cost. In the current economy, particularly in developed economies, people work 3 times from home and twice from the office. Initial cost may be expensive, but it's going to reduce your cost on office operating expenses, like the diesel, the banking space, and other environmental issues around the office. Looking at people again, people need to reduce their error because error is costly. So we need to have an internal control system that seems to be reviewing and constantly reviewing all these errors and so on and so forth. So that is very, very important. And that is why we say that in succeeding or surviving or to flourish, there must be key performance indicators for all staff. Even the staff of operations must constantly review their performance in terms of reduction in error rates. These things, as they are, look theoretical, but if practically applied in our various institutions or industries, of course, we will see a significant turnaround in the fortune of our bottom line, which is the profit and loss, Then, of course, like I said, for the people who can equally reduce the hour of work, if it is possible, then the processes will review all processes and ensure adequacy of control. Where necessary, recommend additional control to ensure that the process is insulated from easy penetration of fraud, cybercrime, staff defecation, internal and external fraud, and so on and so forth. If these are conserved, at the end of the day, expectation would be that we will make good financial returns, which will affect our bottom line, and by extension, it will equally impact on our survival or will thrive. Well, I just have a few minutes to round up, but I will not finish this meeting or discussion without talking about liquidity management. Liquidity management. When we talk about liquidity management, we're talking about the efficiency of your liquidity management, how efficient you are. So, in other words, every institution that wants to survive must have a reasonable compromise between liquidity, that is shortage of liquidity shortages that will result to loss of income. Because if you lose liquidity or you do not manage your liquidity well, there will be a sudden request that can cause a run. And out of that panic, you will be forced to go and borrow high-cost funds. At the end of the day, it will result to paying extra money for what ordinarily you ought to have managed effectively. A lot of us disburse loans on long term, meanwhile our deposit is short term. There must be liquidity mismatch, and there must be liquidity gap that will be negative, that will impact either central bank sanctioning us, or we will be forced to go and borrow money at high cost in order to satisfy minimum reserve requirement and other prudential requirements or standards. At the end of the day, that extra cost that we'll carry will impact on our better life. And of course, at the end, our profit will dwindle. For every bank that will survive, in this circumstance, there must be complete oversight of governance, risk, and compliance. In other words, everybody have its role. We'll be discussing about staff management. What are the strategies they will adopt? We'll have discussed some of them. We cannot exhaust them here. But in as much as we want every staff to play their role, we equally want the stakeholders to equally play their role, particularly the shareholders, the directors, the board of directors. They must have firm and articulate corporate governance culture driven by uncompromising internal control and compliance regime. And of course, some organizations over time have said that the board should have oversight function on expenses. that key costs are properly discussed at the board level and approvals are obtained before they are implemented. And of course, if we imbibe in compliance culture, we discover that the issues of fines and default charges, penalties are reduced. So we must comply with all regulations, both internal and external regulations, tax laws, and so on and so forth. They will reduce panic, they will reduce interference, they will reduce exposures, and of course, they will reduce expenses that will result from all those fines and penalties. Like we have said before, that there should be a first-line review of all expenses, that is CapEx and operational expenses, with a view to bringing down the cost escalation, and review all several level agreements, if possible, cut down operational expenses by suspending not too important functional activities, and other cost control method that can be taken. I am not going to take it as one one-sided affair. We will move further, but I think I need to take questions, comments, and addition before I go further. Thank you. This process. Before I round up, we need people to ask questions, make comments, so I can proceed. Comments, questions, observation. Unless we're not in the training. Can you hear me?
Yes, doctor, I can hear you very clear.
We can hear you very clear.
We can hear you.
So we said we need to equally ask questions, make contribution before we go forward, because it's like it's one-sided. Let's share some knowledge, let's share some stories, let's share some strategy that we have adopted in our various places to get better results that have resulted to important live for us. I expect the feedback from participants, questions or contributions.
Yes, doctor, I have a,
Yes, sir.
question. Thank you very much.
I have a question.
Yes, it's job well done. My question is this: some of my customers whose loans are bad are taking loan from LAPO, and I begin to wonder. I went to one of the LAPO offices in Warri, and I asked them whether they do credit check on these customers before giving loan. And the staff said they send the request to their head office and they approve. Is LAPO not supposed to obey the CBN regulatory policy concerning credit when a customer is having a non-performing loan in the bank and go to them? They freely give to the customer.
Okay. So what impact did they have on your ability to recover your loans? Was it that they gave you loan before you gave yours, or you gave before they gave?
I gave before they gave the customer. And why I was able to know, when I came to the customer shop, the shop that was empty before now have new stock. And I say, how come? You are having an outstanding balance of loan with my bank, it's not cleared, and I'm seeing new stock in your shop. Now told me that it's LAPO. I doubted that. How can LAPO give you loan without referring you to your bank where you are having outstanding? Which he doesn't know. I said, okay, let me find out from one of their offices here. I went
So
there, I asked.
let us discuss what is wrong with the appraisal you did the first time, and also LAPO came as an intruder, but because definitely before you started, you gave a credit check and you didn't see any loan outstanding. But you didn't work on the integrity of your customer. Your customer does not have integrity, number one. So your character assessment is a failure. Because if you have assessed the customer's character, that is a serial borrower, you had enough market information to appraise the customer, you will discover that it's not a stable customer, that is a serial borrower. Because from what he has displayed or she has displayed, it shows that he's a serial borrower. That is why I deliberately brought in appraising our credit review request, a constantly review. The customer did not default one day. The customer just he has been clearly defaulting you. You did not take note because there was no constant credit review. Because only the one that if you were at his shop,
the comment was good. The first second was okay, no problem. It was the third one.
Yes, the third one he has said, no, people come in a how do you call it? They come as wolves. They come as if they are going to their angels. They do the first one, they will looking at you at the corner eye. They will do the second one, they will looking at you again. The third one, they will carry out their attention because they have exploited the loophole in you. I'm not there, but this is from practice and experience. Because if you were going to the customer shop regularly, on weekly basis, you are reviewing customers' position by doing visitation. You are seeing what he has sold. You ask questions. You said yesterday you heard about 2 bottles of Coke in a shop, and when you go, there's not one, which means he sold one yesterday. I said, man, you said 1 Coke yesterday. You didn't give us the money. The customer will know that you are monitoring him or her. So any attempt to move any good that coming to your bank, you will be worried that I hope my people. That is one. Then when the customer goes to market, if you are constantly visiting the customer, these are the practical things I'm talking about. You're practically going to the customer, you discover that new goods have arrived. In fact, it will be closer to the very day you are coming. And you know, where did you fund it from? Like you have noted, Lapo has given me money. But meanwhile, this customer has been defaulting you gradually. You did not know because there was no close review. Then at the point of appraisal, you did not look at the customer's calendar to the letter. You know, these are some of the credits, lapses that we have. And of course, is contagious, is seriously a problem to banking, not only microfinance banking, to banking. Because in Nigeria, we don't have a device to track customers totally. And even where it is available, like we have NIN now, we have BVN now, government has not fully taken over the responsibility of tracking a customer. In foreign countries, you might default one day and report it to the credit bureau. They will be in search for you. The law enforcement will be aware, airport will be aware, all roadblocks will be aware. Immediately they flash your name anywhere, they arrest you. Because we have a system that works. But here we've not got any. But for us to thrive, for us to survive, we must help ourselves by being diligent in appraising customer requests. And where there are doubts, we clear them. Again, using instrumentality of credit life, insurance is important. Insurance is important. Stock hypothecation is important because the stock is stock, whether present or future stock, belong to you. So if LAPO is coming, there's already a clause, a caveat on the stock. That is why I try to show how do you mitigate credit risk. That's why I show that small box to show that in credit risk mitigation, you must look at low risk, high risk, low risk, high risk, and either you short them or you do something. You must treat the risk. You must mitigate the risk. You know, those are the things we're supposed to do from day one. But our credit skills need to be built up to the extent that we can be seeing credit, a customer failure as a vision. They will say, are you a prophet to see what the customer is going to do tomorrow because of your capacity or your capability in understanding how to manage risk? Until we grow to that extent, we may not be able to discern with some level of accuracy what we can do to see the future in terms of customer failure. So what we can do now is to make sure that we develop those capabilities. Most of us go for credit training. Yes, fantastic. But the mere hearing of the passers or the Campari will not really help us to drill down our appraisal processes. But we need to do more to appraise customers. And these incidents we have mentioned will sparingly occur. That is the extent to which we need to drill credit risk. I don't know if I've answered your question.
Yes, thank you.
So, any other question or comment?
Oh, come on.
Hello, sir. There are some questions on the chat box.
On the chat box, okay, let me go to the chat box.
Please, I will like you to speak on liquidity control, especially in the area of accessing fund, considering withdrawal limits in imposed by the CBN.
Okay, please, I would like you to speak more on
Doctor,
liquidity.
can you get that?
Yes, I'm getting it. Please, I would like to speak more on liquidity control, especially in the area of assessing fund, considering withdrawal limit imposed by CBN. What this person is talking about is withdrawal limit imposed by CBN from your commercial bank. I think what your correspondent bank. Is that what you're talking about? If you're talking about that, I think those limits are not working again, because as a bank, there's a circular that we had. I'm sure the chairman had that circular that banks or microfinance bank have no limits withdrawing money for their banks. I don't know if you have that, because it can never work that you, that is a bank, will have limits of withdrawal. How can you serve your customer? So it's not possible. I think there's a circular that canceled that. I don't know if your bank is still practicing that. Are you with me? Are you with me?
Yes, sir. The question continues from that same person.
Yeah, to what extent are fintech a threat to microfinance banks? To what extent are fintech threat to microfinance banks? Yes, fintech are 1 million times a threat to microfinance bank. And I've said it in one of my slides that I presented, that the future of banking is in digital banking. So if you ask me, the customers want to be served at the comfort of their devices. The customer want to be served without physical interaction. The customer want to sign on an account opening without even having contact with you. So it is important that fintech, we as a bank, imbibe technology, digital banking. And of course, fintech are licensed by central bank also to operate within the market. The only difference between us and fintech is that they serve without physical contact with customer, they serve with mobile app, they serve using ATM and the rest. But they have a large market, only that they cannot mobilize deposits. These are only people you can make transfers, you can mobilize deposits. So most of them are riding on microfinance bank licenses or commercial bank licenses. So to a large extent, they are a serious threat to us as a bank. I've said the space for microfinance bank is getting narrower, because commercial bank on one hand, they are pushing to imbibe microfinance banking ecosystem. Fintech, they're also pushing to go to the tail end and ensure that they capture the unbanked. So microfinance bank have few years to survive. And that is why this training is very important. The only thing we can do is to religiously follow all the procedures we have said here, putting eyes on the ball, and ensure that every part of us becomes profitable. You know, if we are trying to be very spiritual, go biblically, the tree that is not profitable, the branch of the tree that is not profitable will be cut off. That is exactly what we need to do to weed waste pipes within our system. Any staff that is not productive, there's no point trying to pet the staff. You can share the grace so that we can let those who want to perform come in. But before you go to that extreme, we as operators, we as managers, we as driver of human resource, must ensure that we train them. Apart from training them, we expose them, we mentor them. In fact, we counsel them and also teach them on what to do. Then help them by supervision to ensure that they meet with the basic requirements to ensure that their targets are met. Our major failure as a bank, as a system, as a microfinance bank, is that we are not very conscious of our budgets. People don't understand with some level of understanding in depth that the budget is a strategic document that drives the results that make you seek to achieve your goals. If we know that, a single variance of the budget should be discussed and addressed and resolved. So these are the issues. The fintechs are a serious threat, and we must do all we can to imbibe technology. One of the questions that will come, and for everywhere we have discussed digital banking, for microfinance banking, is the debt of funds. the lack of technical expertise. But as much as we can, there are shared services, there are shared network, provided that they are interoperable, they can relate, they can interconnect. That's what we need. At cheap cost, so that they are shared income, we need to start gradually onboarding them. That is the only way we can be a bank of the future. Of course, pandemic has taught us that physical distance will continue to stay. Physical proximity will not be possible anymore. So customer can be served anywhere. So the importance of fintech cannot in any way be overemphasized. As somebody said, I should throw more light on interest policy. Interest rate policy is simple to understand. I told you that we'll have what we call duration gap. Just as we equally have, a repricing gap. Now, your policy must be tailored towards ensuring that you have a margin, which is you must have an operating cost. Now, interest on lending must be higher than interest on savings or deposits. So you need to have a gap. Your policy should show that your minimum allowable gap that will be accepted. Your minimum allowable gap cannot be less than maybe, for instance, depending on the company policy, 10% gap. That would be the difference between lending rate and your deposit rate. That is one of the policies. It is a policy, and whenever you are pricing, ensure you live within that gap. Another interesting policy is the maturity profile. The maturity profile of loans and not of deposits. Never you give short-term fund for long-term lending, because by the time you take a feasibility of 6 months and you lend it for 12 months, when it matures in 6 months, you have a cash flow problem because your customer cannot take his money. You will be in between default risk. You'll be defaulting to pay the customer's money. And that will send your signal to your system. At the end of the day, it will result to reputational damage. And if not properly managed, it will result to, a run, a gradual run. So again, when I talk about the rule of 80-20, you need to look at your customers and profile your customers. Who are the top 20 customers that will give you 80% profit? Because some of us, we drive our balance sheet recklessly. We drive our performance recklessly. We do not know to look at the ratio of who is contributing X, Y, Z to our bottom line. But a manager that knows his or her onion will be able to know that my customer that contributed 80% of my profit are X, Y, Z, or Mr. ABC. And look at what they have done and see what they can do to improve on these customers' performances. This is very sacrosanct. And once the rule of 80-20 is applied, customers will be indebted to you. The customer will notice that you are interested in them. The customer would like to build you as a family. And before you know it, they will cross-sell for you. Before you know it, they will help you to get referrals. Before you know it, they will enlarge cost for you. That's what happens with such relationship. So the rule of 80-20 seeks to advise all managers or all team leaders or business people to ensure that they scan into their records and look at those who have contributed significantly. 20 of those customers or 20% of those customers who have contributed significantly to achieve 80% result of the institution, bank, or organization. Are we together? That's what we mean by that. So I'm sure you understand a little bit about interest policy because you must have a margin of safety, a margin of profit, a margin that will pass on your bottom line, a margin that will increase your earnings. It must be created there. I'm sure you understand what you mean by interest rate policy. In case you have time, I could forward the interest rate policy document to you. For you to have the content. It's very elaborate. Okay? Any other question, please? Any other question, please? Are you following me? Is everybody following me?
Yes,
They're following me. Can we go ahead? So now, we have tried to this extent to address issues related to our managers, our team, our staff, and every dramatic personnel within the operating environment we discussed. Now, what we need to look at is we cannot achieve all these results without going back to the origin. And where is the origin? It is the strategic intent of the owners of this business. You are all aware that under corporate governance story or analysis, our interest as managers of resources is a little bit different from the interest of the owners of the company. So in bringing this interest together, in trying to reconcile this interest, that is why corporate governance came into existence, to look to realign our own individual interests to the organization total interests or goals or objectives. Are we together? That is why we also need the tone of performance of to flourish to come from the top part of our the organogram. We need to come from there, because if the management of or the stakeholders are not really interested in pushing you or supporting you, there's not much you can do, because when you request for approval, they are declined because they do not need to. They do not understand what you need to do to really get to that. That is why at the beginning, I must emphasize this. At the beginning, you must make sure that you do a budget that is well communicated to the board. To the board, and carry the board along from day one, so that they can support you. If you really want to flourish, you want to get to the top, you want to thrive in this time period, the entire board must be carried along. And of course, as we know, the board is led by a board chairman. So board approvals need to be obtained in advance. Your strategic tools or direction need to be properly approved, so that at the time of operations, your approvals will not be delayed, because time, we can control our resources, we can control the staff, we can control our liquidity, but can we control time? No. So time is of the essence. That is why we need to be proactive to ensure that we are able to obtain our approvals going forward in advance, so that at the time of operations, your time is not delayed in trying to execute the strategic intent of the. So we need the buy-in of the stakeholders or the shareholders, and of course, we need people to have a governance oversight over this decision without losing sight of the values. One of the major importance of what would impede on our reputation is when our values are eroded, when we cross our boundaries, when we seem to divert our eyes from the objective for which the organization is created. Like we know, our mission as a microfinance bank is dual. Why we want to fulfill the social mission, why that is trying to help the unbanked or the less privileged. Second mission is profitability. Without profitability, we cannot stand. So we must not lose sight of the focus of our objective. Then, of course, that will require that all of us must be accountable. Both the board is accountable, but accountable to the role they play in the various board committees, and also they must preserve the values. Just as management and staff of the organization, we equally preserve the value. And you know what? The values are preserved when we have a workable document. Like we know, in managing any firm, we must have conflict resolution strategies that are well documented, code of conduct that will regulate the behavior of people, because these are things we talk about, professionalism and ethics. My thinking may be different from your thinking. My belief may be different from your belief. Is it right to kill a man who offended you? These are ethical issues that we need to discuss. So until we have a code of conduct that seems to regulate all of this, which is very strategic for all of us, as a bank, as an organization, if you don't have a code of conduct, you need to have one that will regulate every staff behavior, so that those ethical dilemmas can be properly addressed. Okay, so I think having said that, we need to progress, because we have spent a lot of time. We need to conclude. But before we conclude, let me just make these 3 comments. Now, given the extent of financial inclusion, like we all know, everybody is driving financial inclusion. The central bank is rewarding those who are able to bring in the customer BVN. You know, MFB may have few years of opportunity left if they do not deliberately go to the market to make an impact. 2 years left, because like I told you, the fintech, they are pushing from one end. The commercial banks, they are trying to develop micro ecosystem within their own system. So if we don't go to the markets to make impact right now, we'll discover that at the end of the day, we have few years to exist in the market. We'll be pushed and boxed out of the market. Or we'll be given an exit to go, like I will say, we'll share the grace and leave the industry. So it is very, very key that all the operators, all the dramatic personnel within the operating system need to take very closely some of the issues or some select issues we have raised here. We may not have exhausted all, but we need to look at them closely by using a bird eye view. Then the key to even survivor independently would be to get back from investors, backing, I'm talking about backing from investors. You know, so our investors, we need to select them, because some investors believe that they have just come to just get high return on their investment. But in a declining economy, in a poor performing economy like Nigeria, we need to systematically build capacity. We need to systematically, look at our income profile, so that if the only objective of our investors is just to make high returns, then we need to select our investors for critical survival of the system, so that at low times, we all work together to achieve high investment on the long run, which is measured by return on their equity. So these are very important. So if we do not work together as both stakeholders and stakeholders and operators, at the end of the day, we will not really achieve the purpose for which we are created. Any questions as I want to run? Any questions I want to run? Any questions? You see, people are not in this training now.
We are here, sir.
So I need questions before I round up. More questions. If you don't have questions, you can make comments, or you can make contribution. What we have said. The person that asks questions on liquidity, I hope you understand what we mean by liquidity. Liquidity, yeah. So, having said that, the decision to flourish is in our hands. A lot have been said. It's not exhaustive. We can equally look at what more we can do from our strategic session. It is very, very important to mention that every bank must fall into strategic session, particularly given the current situation of the country. I have tried as much as possible to show you the budget of the country. We're already on a budget deficit of about 9.18 trillion. I've shown that in one of the slides. They are not. I didn't finish the slide. No, I rushed to prepare the slide this morning. So you may not have the full slide, but I will send the slide to the chairman of the group, of our chairman, to distribute to everybody. In the slide, you are going to see the macroeconomic dashboard, where I try to explain some of the indicators and their implication for our operations. I try to mention them there, So we can see that from the dashboard, we have a falling situation caused by PMS, that is the petroleum subsidy that was removed, and of course the hike in the price of petroleum products, and of course the mounting debt have increased by over 40%. Some of these are mentioned in that dashboard, and of course the deficit of about 9.18 trillion naira on the budget of federal government budget, the budget that is allocated to expenditure and for debt servicing, the burden of the debt and the debt overhang and their impact on us. I try to mention some of all this in the dashboard so that we can know that all these have a play for risk management, because from what I said in one of the slides, the people are becoming poorer. Because the measure of your wealth, if you go to the reserve, the dollar is a measure. And you can see that your per capita income is declining when converted to foreign currency. So we are getting poorer. So when appraising loan, you must assess again the capacity to pay, customer and the cash flow. These things were not just mentioned for mentioning sake. I tried to explain some of the implication. And finally, I went to state some of the insights into the budget. I think I look at things like the budget is quite ambitious, though it's unrealistic. So we will not place all our weight on the budget. Then again, we said that the budget seems to intensify spending to support the economy. But of course, spending on what? Is it on capital projects or current expenditure? They are bloated government expenditure. So most of the spending is on current expenditure instead of capital budget, which may projects that ought to help us in growth. Then of course, because it's in deficit, we need to look at how to optimize revenue. It's expedient that government SBI revenue to fund the budget. That is where compliance comes into play. You must comply with regulations. You must obey tax laws. Otherwise, if you really want to survive, if you really want to thrive, if you really want to flourish, you must avoid the troubles of the tax authorities by complying with all necessary tax laws. These are external factors that actually impact or have negative impact on our operations. Because by the time they come and put a tape at the front of your office that you cannot operate, of course, you're going to have a quadruple effect because it has people have come. Secondly, the potential damage, maybe they have done something to task, that damage will come, the potential damage will come. And if not properly managed, it will result to, a run in your bank. At the end, if care is not taken, you see that your license will be withdrawn. And like we always say, prevention is better than cure. Having said that, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for listening. If there are more questions, you can ask. Thank you.
There's a question on the chat.
On the chat, good.
So to what extent is NAMB working with the federal government in making the economic space friendly for MFBs?
Okay, look, good. Let me take this question. One by the person that is using TK. The commercial banks are not complying to that instruction. What instruction? I don't know. Then a mega praise. Okay, please throw more light on it. Okay, I've done that. And to what extent is NAMB working with federal government in making the economic space friendly for MFBs operator? It appears their policies are strangulating the MFBs. This is very true. And I think our chairman is an ESCO member, will be able to address this. But from the external side, from our side, those of us who have been trying to put little pressure from forums and opportunities that we have, is that you can notice that the cashless policy was directly aimed at closing most of the banks. And it did have impact. That is why somebody had asked a question that the liquidity, maintain liquidity, what about the caveat or the limit that is placed by CBN on commercial banks? I think that has been addressed. But the truth to it, the policies that are coming out are not in favor of microfinance banks. And like I've mentioned in the presentation, that one of the problems is we are affected by regulation. We are being seen as small banks. But I have spoken before in some forum that in Europe, for which I've attended because I mobilized MFBs to Europe so many years ago to go and look at the structure of their banking. And we discovered that the microfinance banks or the smaller unit banks are respected as bigger ones. So they give them a level playing ground. And because of that, for financial inclusion, their ability to gain financial inclusion was increased. So they could reach to the very low people in the economy. So when we provide their deposit, they have about 70% deposit control over the entire banking system in Europe. But here in Nigeria, the microfinance banks are being downplayed. And so I will leave the case for our chairman to answer. Madam, to what extent are we really working with CBN to ensure that some of these policies from assault are addressed, avoid strangulating MFBs, and help us to survive in a poor economic performance like this? So I throw the question back to our chairman.
To the person that asked that question, though the name was not that the MFB the person is representing.
The what?
So that we can be abreast with current of the NAMB. For example, from the microfinance numbers that were their license were revoked as at last year, we are glad to say that NAMB was able to liaise with CBN and over 45 number of the MFBs license have been restored. Also, one of us that is affected here, one of them has been restored too. So with all this, you will note just the way doctor have already said it, that currently you can see that the cashless policy has been put up with the director of it. It's where we submit all our challenges and they are promptly attended to. And what we are going to plead with members, if you have any issues, don't die with it. It's better you call on NAMB privately, even if you don't want to release the challenge on the public platform, so that we can come and help out, because some of these issues, sometimes by the time we get to CBN, CBN will tell us your people have not done this, have not done that. So it's somehow difficult for us sometimes to solve a problem that you don't know. But in the area of compliance, when we have so many issues concerning compliance, though when you have not finished with one, another one will be released. We are still working with them keenly to see how they can at least reduce some of all these compliance issues for MFBs. I think with the little I have said, and the revocation of license and restoration of so many because of NAMB activity, you should know that the NAMB is actually working with CBN. But if there are other issues you want us to address, you can also forward to us so that we relate to CBN accordingly. Thank you.
That's a good one. That's a good one. Any other contribution? I think that is the only question that is outstanding here. So, I don't know. That is the end of today's session. I don't, Mr. President or Mr. Chairman, I don't know.
There is still a question on the chat box. They said, please, my question is, what is the best approach for recovery and unyielding defaulting loan customers that will be or have less cost implication on the bank? From Mr. Olugbo. I think that's from
recovery for
Lee staff.
Customer. We have
over to you. There's a question to you there.
See the question. He said, please, for the benefit of us, say, please, my question is, what is the best approach for recovery of an unyielding defaulting loan customer that will be having less cost implication on the bank? Of course, every recovery has cost implication. And also every recovery depends on what you have agreed with the customer as a covenant. You know, when you package a loan, there are terms and conditions that you have agreed. There are also collateral that you have taken. And either you perfect them or you're not perfected. So recovery would depend on what are the covenants that you have reached with these customers. There's no one of the system or method that is cheaper. There's not. The only one that is cheap is moral suasion and customer trying to also be nice. Or if not, if a customer is recalcitrant from what they are saying, expectedly it will be keeping house. In other words, he will be running away from his house. And you will need to take the searchlight to look for him. But if you have put your recovery method in place from day one, that have an issue. Because at times when we're packaging our loan request, we do not look at so many details, like I've said before. Failure starts from the very day you're packaging. And if we take the mentality of saying that before you start from the known to the unknown, I know that this loan is going to fail. So what can I do to make sure it does not fail? And you answer all the questions correctly, you discover that the recovery will be easier for you. What have you done with the collateral you've taken? What is the nature of the collateral? Is it marketable? Is he having liquid components? In other words, can it easily be realizable? Did you take stock and did you perfect the stock? Or is it a lien, a deposit? Or is it a fixed asset? You perfect it and you follow the procedure you require to obtain a proper legal mortgage, and so on and so forth. So your question will depend on the way you package it and the terms of covenant that you reach in that loan. And again, like I always mention, loan default starts from one day. And it is when we wait that the economic condition is bad, the customer condition is totally bad before we go for recovery. But if you are doing constant credit review, there's no way you will not do for the first 1 week that the customer defaults. And you take steps at that time, you start following up. Then again, I must say this, in one of the credit training that I did, I think I mentioned to the participants, that customers study you. They look at how consistent you are. In fact, they will deliberately come, they will engage you. If you go to recover, they will buy you drink. You sit down, and even telling you put cola and play for you. Say that is our culture, and make you their friend. At the end of the day, you'll be helpless to recover. So the recovery team must be focused on their job, and they must understand the do's and don'ts of recovery, and go as a team and show some element of resilience in recovery. The moment you go to the next 2-3 weeks, customer doesn't see you, you will relax. He will say that's how the normally they will come. Don't worry, if I talk to him, go. He will not come the next 3 weeks, I will rest. A customer that is constantly being disturbed will definitely look for a way to pay, because you are giving the customer a sleepless night. But all of this depends on the terms of covenant that you have and what you are taking as a coverage in the process of covenant packaging the loan. Lugbo, have I spoken to you? Lugbo? Lugbo, have I answered your question?
Who is no longer there? So Lugbo still there?
Oh, so far so good.
Okay. So far so good. Before we call it a day, we would like to appreciate the presence of some of the directors that are present. Those some have left, some are still there. We have 4 directors in attendance. We appreciate Mrs. Pedi Justina, the pioneer chairman of Wetland Microfinance Bank. And we also appreciate the chairman of Coastline Microfinance Bank, Dr. Robo Omawumi. She's also present. And we appreciate the resident director of Mega Praise, who is in attendance too, Mr. Ure Shegu Henry. You are highly welcome, sir. We appreciate your presence. Also, we thank our resident director, Mr. Unamdi Okonkwo of Anosha Microfinance Bank in the Anosha Axis. You're welcome. We appreciate your presence in our midst today, and we say thank you very much for finding time to be with us. Ali, over to you.
Okay, good afternoon or morning, Doctor, I want to really appreciate the delivery of this training, a very perfect one. So on behalf of NAMB Delta State and the Expo, I want to really thank you for the job well done. And I want to also equally thank the chairman find time to join us in this training. I say may God bless you. And as we go about doing our job, like Doctor has advised, let's ensure we do due diligence. And when we are going for recovery, let's be guided properly, because if you are too friendly with them, they'll take you for a ride. So thank you all, and I wish you well as you go back to your work.
Okay, for the closing remark by the chairman, my humble self, Mrs. Fejiro Ugute. I want to say a big thank you to all of you all for your active participation and for your valuable insights today. Let's take what we have learned and apply it to drive the success in our various MFBs. Special thanks to our speaker and the organizers of this program, which is the executives of NAMB. Together, let's navigate challenges and thrive. Until next time we meet again, remain blessed. My warm regards to you and your various staff. Thank you from me, Mrs. Fejiro Ugute, the chairman of NAMB Delta chat.